County and the City of Bend working together towards finding locations for low-barrier camps outside of Bend city limits. While this would require comprehensive facility services and a transportation plan, couldn't it potentially provide a greater amount of needed shelters and shelter beds?
I would say yes, definitely. We are working together. We have allocated $1.5 million initially, and I did look for property that perhaps could help the City of Bend. That piece of property wasn't any, it was out of the area too much, but truly, I feel like what we found in Redmond on our county land, I wish we had that right down Highway 20. You need this again? Oh gosh, thank you. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I wish we could look together and find some land out of the city yet surrounded where it's a safe area. My theory is actually to put a sprinkler system around the property, like our 10 acres by the airport, so that when they do start a fire, you can turn on that sprinkler system. And you can, truly, they start fires. All the camps have it. They've all, I don't know, it's just, they start a lot of fires. So I'm hoping that maybe we could work together. I know we've given them that money. We've helped the city of Redmond with 88 beds for Bethlehem Inn. We donated $900,000 for that project to get that one up, because that's actually a really effective number. 88 beds. That's okay. 88. If we're dealing with 1,500, that's a good start. So hopefully, meeting with Megan with our team, we're still meeting together. We are going to have a navigation, or you have the navigation office. We're going to have the joint meeting group, and we'll have input from the commissioners to people in the community. The Forest Service wants to be part of that. We have a lot of things that we know we need to work together on, and it's not easy. But as far as transportation goes, surely you guys realize that you started paying an employee tax of 0.1%, and the county gets about $10 million a year for those buses. So we truly can run a bus system if it's a mile out of town or something. I know Commissioner Devon and I are happy with the plan that we're doing in Redmond, that is actually within the city of Redmond's boundary, because we have that bus system that we can provide for people in order to have them engage with the services they want. And then if we have such things as employment, training opportunities on those 10 acres, that's another option that I think is really positive. Let's transition the people back to, to the world.
The transportation wouldn't just be to social services, right? It would probably also be, those people have to go to work, get to and for, so it would handle that.
Right, it's a bus system, and it's, as we call it, it's very nimble. And we just need more drivers, but truly the bus system would be helpful as far as getting people to town. Let's say they usually normally ride a bicycle and it's a mile from town and they don't want to ride the bike that day because it's snowing. So no, we have the options for transportation with our bus system.
So following up, Commissioner Adair, a question is the number of illegal campers on China Hat has exploded to over 200. There are fire concerns, illegal dumping, and increase in crime in our neighborhoods near China Hat. What are you going to do to help facilitate the removal of these illegal campers? Now, I think you've addressed a lot of that in terms of the camps and needing the beds, but I think one of the things that really scares the heck out of everybody probably in this room is the fires. We're one fire away from a disaster. So I wonder if there's anything, I know it's going to take a while till we get some of the beds we need, but how can we are there any plans to address the fire hazard?
As someone who had a fire go around my house in the 90s where 359 homes burned and 3 people died, I am truly aware of the pressure of the danger of fires. And 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday, I was working on one monitor. So that day, I was receiving an email an hour from people in China Hat. And I thought, okay, this is the day I'm going to forward every one of those emails to Glenn Casamassa. He is the Regional Deputy Forester, the Director for Oregon and Washington State, and he knows me.
So I forwarded every one of these emails, and I kept saying, Glenn, when are you going to do something for our community? This is our 5th year of a drought. Please address these issues and address them now, because I think it was before we got all that rain and additional snow. I mean, it's dry, and it's an enormous worry. Well, by 4 o'clock the next day, I actually had a call from Holly Jukes, who runs the forest here, and Glenn's right-hand person, Sally Butts, was coming to town on Friday, and she met with me and a couple of the homeowners from China Hat. We had a meeting, and we were saying, like, okay, how do we get no overnight camping? How do we get no campfires? I mean, we were like, what is it we can do to make our community safer? We really need to get people out of China Hat. I've been working on this for 4 years. It's incredibly frustrating when you see the growth, the destruction, the problems. And I just actually did get a letter back from Sally, the right-hand person, and they are truly working on things, maybe not quite as much as we want or as I want and people that live there want, but we are making some progress. So some progress. Okay, they are saying that we're going to be able to have an emergency seasonal fire ban in the area. They're trying to determine the property lines. Someone had suggested to move the camps out further away from Bend. That's truly not a good idea. A fire could get a head of steam if the wind is blowing the wrong way. So that wasn't something that we were asking for. They are also working on some direct funding to do continued cleanup, and they are also losing additional funding for law enforcement. But also on Monday, the following Monday, I was in the sheriff's office, and he had a meeting with Holly Jukes and her team from the Forest Service, and we're all saying something has to be done. Sheriff Nelson is ready to step up as soon as possible in order to stop the public safety and the fire threat. We had 925 calls last year in China Hat alone. 925. It keeps our sheriff's office busy, and it's so frightening for the people that live there. So a few of those were duplicates, but truly the danger there has just blown up.
So the idea of a fire ban is probably very attractive to just about everyone. But if we have a fire ban, I would say we couldn't assume that everybody is going to listen to that fire ban. So then the reality falls on
law enforcement.
Yeah,
they've got to go in.
Yeah, Chief Krantz or Sheriff Nelson, and to enforce that, which would probably mean some visits down there on a regular basis.
Yeah, I do believe that they're down there quite a bit. And one of the other things that we wanted to add into the ban was propane. You know, those little canisters that seem to always be igniting. So that was something that we were pushing for. It didn't seem to happen. And the other thing that they talked about, though they said they had to have public hearings over, was to no longer allow overnight camping. Now, Holly Jukes got a little concerned about that. It has to be public hearings, and if we do it in China Hat, no overnight camping. Wouldn't that be a dream? Then she thinks that other places in Deschutes County it's going to be requested. Well, of course it is, because where will they go next? Where will they go? Where will they go?
Yeah. So this next question kind of goes back to the conversation we had with on low barrier shelters and what are the rules and regulation, who's allowed in there, who's not allowed in there. So what percentage of those who go through your program, this is addressed to you, Councilor Perkins, but it could be anybody, what percentage of those who go through your program are sex offenders? So I think what that's probably getting at is the people that go into a low barrier shelter overnight or multiple nights, whatever, is there any screening for sex offenders? I mean, we have if someone is a registered sex offender and they live in an area, it gets published, there's a place to go. But I guess in the low barrier camps, I'm assuming, we really don't know.
Well, it's not my program. If you're talking about low barrier shelters, which I do not run, I believe I believe it's up to the discretion of the service provider, what sort of barriers and limits. I know that Bethlehem Inn, that's a high barrier shelter. They for sure do not allow sex offenders because of the families. I'm not sure about the Division Street shelter. If they're doing that. I know that Shepherd's House does not because it is a, sort of an emergency one-night basis. So I don't really know the answer to that because I'm not a service provider.
Okay. Commissioner Adair, what is your view on how programs can serve the houseless at the same time while holding such individuals accountable for their actions?
Accountable?
Yes. So I think this is probably getting at the question of, okay, if someone is in either a low barrier or high barrier and they need to adhere to certain rules and regulations and they have to take advantage of or do they have to take advantage of the social programs that are offered? So if someone's experiencing mental illness, if someone has drug or alcohol addictions, do you see the camps holding them accountable that they must participate in these?
I do think it's important to be accountable, but the fact that I mentioned the importance of mentors earlier, I think the more mentors that work within Deschutes County's behavioral health program, I think that will help make it more successful, because when they're hearing, okay, you didn't follow the rule, you need help for this or that, but you're hearing it from someone you have a relationship with that understands where you've been, I think that helps the success rate greatly. It's never easy, but truly they have to follow the rules, and you want to have the right people working in the program. So it's complicated, and yet I'm hoping that we can do more mentors.
Well, I think in listening to what Alan was talking about earlier, it seems like if somebody comes into a low barrier, if they adhere to the rules and regulations and they agree to partake in those services, they can then move on to a high barrier. Well, by moving on to a high barrier, with that, you might say comes privileges. It's nicer surroundings overall. It's maybe everything is a little bit better than it is in a camp or shelter with a low barrier. So I think probably, my guess would be, we have to count on people wanting to have that better experience.
Right, and mentors will probably be able to determine with their experience, just, thinking about our Veterans Village and how successful it's been with, I would say, probably low barrier, and yet we have services provided there, and truly it's working. So we just, I would love to have a couple more Veterans Villages in Deschutes County, maybe one in Lapine. We had an opportunity in Redmond. That one kind of fell through the cracks a bit, but I'm hoping that it will still happen.
So earlier, you talked about Oasis Village. Could you clarify, Oasis Village is how large now versus how large you see it getting in terms of the number of beds? And then I think there was another 10 acres available. What would the potential size of that be, and what would it take to get something going there?
Okay, Oasis Village is in plan stage now. The tiny homes are being built. The first one is done. They're going to take it around to the community and get underwriting for it. It will serve, it'll be 30 tiny homes, and it will serve perhaps from 30 to 60 people. I would say probably 30 to 45 people when it's done. It's not open yet. The plans are underway. It's followed the plans from Rogue Valley and what they've done in Southern Oregon. They've had an extremely successful program, but what they saw when we said we wanted to put everything on 10 acres, they were going, that's such a good idea because we want to consolidate services. It makes it easier for the service providers that when they're coming in to those the other 8 acres that the Oasis Village will be using, then we'll have an additional 8 acres where RVs can come in and park and be there, and eventually then we'll be able to get more services there too. It's all transitioning. It's amazing how much time these things, you think, oh my gosh, we can get this done, whereas, the Veterans Village took a year. And I thought, wow, we can have that done in 3 months. Well, no, it really did take a year. So now we're underway, had a good conversation today with James Cook, who is part of that program, and it seems that something positive will be happening sooner rather than later.
Okay, thanks. That goes a long way to giving us an idea. Okay, I think I'm getting the signal that says we're out of time. I was a little slow in the update there. So, I wanted to say that we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and we hope this town hall answered a lot of the questions that you had in your mind. It's also likely that you'll walk away realizing there are no easy solutions, there's no easy answers. But I also hope you walk away, feeling like the benefit of a town hall is neighbors, city officials, county officials, Ben PD coming together to have a dialogue and discuss what's on everyone's mind. So I'm going to leave you, as we close things out, with a quote from Ken Blanchard, an American author and business consultant that I particularly like. And Mr. Blanchard says, "None of us is as smart as all of us." So as you leave here tonight, please keep the thought that we must work together to create win-win solutions. As you walk away, I would encourage you to reach out and discuss the issues with your friends and your neighbors. Talk about what we talked about tonight. Discuss your challenges and discuss our challenges and possible solutions with your business associates. And feel free to share your ideas with our city and county representatives. And here on the screen, you see various web addresses, URLs, so that if you have something you want to share, go ahead and send a note, send a letter. These do get looked at. I would also reiterate what Megan Perkins said earlier, that coming up on May 4th is an important meeting. City Council is having a combination Zoom as well as in-person meeting, first in-person meeting that City Council's had in a long time, coming out of the pandemic era. And that meeting is May 4th at 7 p.m. to discuss shelter code proposals. You can either be a fly on the wall, or you can register to speak up and voice an opinion. One last thing is, as you exit here tonight, out at the tables where you registered, there are a couple of representatives from the neighborhood associations. If you're not a member of one of your neighborhood associations, please join. We'd love to have you as a member. And with that, I want to give a special thank you to our panelists and our audience for everything tonight. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.